Welcome back to Calvary Life. This is the podcast for the membership of Calvary Baptist Church and anybody else out there that would or is interested in local church life. We're glad to be back. I'm Charles Uptain.
Welcome way back since we've been gone for about a month.
Yeah, we almost forgot how to get up here.
Yeah, this is Paul Thompson. Glad to finally get it rolling again.
Yeah, I've been on some no vacations. It probably wasn't a vacation to where you were at, but mission trips and time away and that kind of thing. So it's kind of had a few weeks away, but ready to get back into it.
Yeah, still feeling the physical effects from being in India, but no offense to India, but it's always hard on the body.
Yeah.
So still in recoup mode.
Was it like 11 or 12 hour time difference?
Goodness gracious. I should know. I think it's 9.5. It's a half hour, which is odd where we were. And India's got 2 time zones, so we were going back and forth, but it's by half hour for some reason. I don't know the science of that.
Well, there's other science that says that it takes you about 1 day for every hour time difference. So
for real?
Yeah, to get over it. So
it's not so much the time difference I'm getting over. It's the biryani and the cardamom
it's
and
the consumption of weird foods and spices, huh?
Spicy foods for sure. But it was a great experience. I'll talk more about it. I'll use this to make an advertising plug for the church. I really want you to hear about what God's doing there because it's encouraging. Not just a basic mission report. It's not just about giving facts and data, though I'll give some for what I did there and what Calvary supports there. But really, I think it's encouraging sometimes just for the church to hear what the church, capital C, is doing around the world. The only way we know is if people tell us, if we see things, if we see it with our own eyes sometimes. And I just think it's encouraging to know that the gospel is going out there. I met a lot of first-generation pastors, young guys, a lot of young church planners, names people are never going to know. A lot of them are independent, really don't have any organizational support. They just have relationships and friendships. The supports they have, it's informal. It's like somebody gets saved and starts sharing the gospel, and next thing you know, there's a little village church. And then from that, another one spreads. And so it's very very Book of Acts-like, it feels there. But a lot of prayers needed, and I'll talk about some of that in a couple of weeks on a Sunday night, just to give everybody a what's happening in our limited sphere, what we saw.
Yes, that'll be on the 17th during the evening service that night, so that'll be good stuff. So today, we've had a big week. We had, of course, the election on Tuesday, and so I just wanted to spend some time, I guess, talking about that, talking about where we are as believers when it comes to, I guess it's post-election at this point, to having a new president to be inaugurated in January, Donald Trump, again for his second term after being 4 years off or away. Paul, give us your thoughts to Tuesday.
Man, they're really broad. I tell you, I was actually kind of surprised, and I hate to sound a bit like a conspiracy theorist, but I think some of these conspiracies are starting to be borne out. I really felt like if there was a free and fair election, that there were more conservative voters there nationwide than otherwise. I really thought that the Republicans would prevail and that Trump would win if it was free and fair, but I really question that. And again, I won't get into this. This is not our purview, but I think some of that data that we've seen coming out, total number of votes cast in the last 4 elections, but there's one anomaly, and it was the 2020 election, so it really made you wonder. And I know there's some disparity and some controversy about still some local elections and some state elections and results, certain counties and things. So anyway, I guess I was rather pleasantly surprised by the big one. I read this tweet today, though, which I thought might sort of frame our discussion a little bit. Some people are responding against this, as you might guess, in a lot of different ways. This was yesterday. John Piper posted this on Twitter. Presidential election results. Having delivered us from one evil, God now tests us with another. And then he quotes Deuteronomy 13:3. The Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. I think his point was this. Leading up to election, we kept hearing this. We're going to have to choose between the lesser of 2 evils.
Yeah.
And recognizing there is no perfect candidate available to us, I really think that's what we did. And in a sense, we do that every time. It may be a little bit more pronounced each election cycle, that's the reality. But I think one thing we need to keep in mind with this, while people who have a conservative viewpoint and certainly have a more pro-life viewpoint and and traditional value viewpoint are going to be pleased with the election. We need to remember there is a lot left to do for Christian conservatives. I guess that's the challenge. Like I was thinking this, Charles, there were abortion initiatives on the ballot in a number of states. And look, here's some of the results. In Florida, President Trump won the vote by 13%, yet abortion narrowly lost. There was 57.1% support in the state of Florida to pass a very liberal abortion bill that would have made Florida one of the most liberal abortion states. And again, didn't pass because Florida requires 60% to change an amendment or to pass an amendment, but still 57.1. In Missouri, Trump won by 18.4, and the abortion bill passed with 52%. In Montana, he won by 20%, yet abortion passed with 57.4. New England, he won by 20. I'm sorry, that's not New England. Nebraska, not New England. In Nebraska, he won by 21.7%, yet abortion passed with 51.3% support. Winning in Nevada at the time this was posted, yet abortion passed with 63%. Arizona, he won by 5%, yet abortion passed with 61.7%. And I guess my point in all that is this: if we're going to be genuinely salt and light as a culture, we've got to continue. We've got battles to continue to fight. We've got people to continue to teach. We've got minds that still have to change.
Yeah, the abortion is, it's after being so excited about the way Roe v. Wade went away, and I went back to the states, and we hope to see more and more states that would end up putting bans out there or limiting abortion, and all those ways. It seems to be the actual opposite thing is what's happening. And like you said, it's not just the politicians doing that. This is the people. Yeah. This is not just there's a really liberal senator or this kind of thing that's pushing this. No, this is the majority of our country.
Yeah, it's it's grassroots, and these things, when given over to popular vote, we're seeing where people are. This discussion came up in our elders' prayer meeting. So, what do we need to be doing? How do we need to be persuading people? And I think it's a combination of things. I think Christians need to be consistent about teaching about life. Where life begins, the value of life, God's design in life, God's sovereignty over life, just a consistent Christian ethic of life from conception forward. And in addition to that, I think we need to be engaging culture in sort of a apologetic, philosophical sort of way. The implications, the consequences, all those sort of things. And I think, honestly, we need physicians to step up. We need physicians to tell the truth about what's happening and be bold enough to say, this is reality. This is what the process is. This is what it looks like, et cetera. Charles, speaking of that, and this sounds like this is our only topic today, but it's not. But there's been so much misinformation spread on this subject.
Yeah.
And I know you guys deal with this as a board member at Wiregrass Hope and things like that. Oh, this is going to limit someone who has an ectopic pregnancy, or this is going to affect people who have serious fetal abnormalities. This is going to affect victims of incest. Blah blah. Listen to these statistics real quick. Okay, the reasons people terminate pregnancies. Okay, the pregnancy resulted from an incestuous relationship. 0.01%. We've heard a lot about rape. Oh, all these rape victims. What are they going to do? Well, we're sympathetic to that, but in reality, where abortion is concerned, that's only 0.15%. What about the woman's life being endangered? 0.2%. Serious fetal abnormality, 0.98%. So not even 1%. The woman's physical health was threatened, not life endangered, just her physical health, 1.48%. Her psychological health was threatened, whatever that means, 1.88%. The woman aborted for social or economic reasons, 20.4%. No reason given. Elective, surely elective, 74.9%.
Yeah, so 95% of those are either for some selfish reason of economics or elective. Yeah,
it's just elective. So these are the sort of things we have to be talking about. So again, my point in this is really not to get into a long discussion on abortion. We can certainly do that another time, but just to remind Christians, listen, we need to continue to be salt and light and a force for good and a force for biblical values in the public square.
Yeah. And one thing I saw with this, not to continue it too long, but as I was looking, one thing that was brought up to me, which is, we saw President-elect Trump really move his own position He was pro-choice when he was younger, and then it seemed like he was really pro-life when he got in his first time in 16. In fact, I think he would say that he ran on that. And of course, this time it's a lot more towards pro-choice. He may say he still believes that abortion should be rare, but when he stands up against the bill in Florida or for the bill in Florida and calls DeSantis, certain names and things,
he flip-flopped on that. I'm not even sure finally where his stance was. Initially, he was saying he was opposed to the amendment. And then, like you said, those derogatory comments towards DeSantis, and then the most recent interview right before the election, he just simply cut somebody off. Let's quit talking about that. So
right.
I really don't know.
Yeah, and so I think with that, the point that was made, what I was reading, is that conservatives and Christian conservatives, we don't need to just fall into saying, well, we're going to be wherever Trump is on this. We still have to have our stance and even push him, through legislation or whoever can, to push him as president to still uphold those pro-life positions where you can. Not saying we're going to have an abortion ban across the nation. I don't think that's not even anywhere near anybody's radar, and not his either. But just things that can be done that are pro-life, as in adoption and things
every step
all
we can
those kind
take.
of things.
We have to have a spot at the table.
Those need to keep being pushed by the right, by those who are conservatives and Christians, and not just saying, well, we're now loyal to Trump, even though we voted for him. We don't need to say that we take all of his positions wholeheartedly, so to speak.
Here's another stat for you, just for us to chew on post-election now. According to some studies, there are 90 million evangelicals eligible to vote in this country. 40 million do not vote. 15 million are not even registered. So, what does that say? Here's what I think. I think the church was exposed to a degree. I want to say the church, not just little c, local church, but the true Christian church, evangelical church in America, was exposed to a degree because we have not taught our people what I would call traditionally, historically, a Protestant political ethic or a Protestant political theory. In other words, we're all over the map in terms of how we should be engaging culture. We've got, on the one hand, you've got millions of Christians who are completely disengaged. They're not voting. What are the reasons? I don't know if those reasons are they think it doesn't matter, won't have a vote, or is it theological doctrinal, this single kingdom mindset? This is not our kingdom, this is not our world, this is not our concern. Is that the mindset? Excuse me. On the other hand, far to the extreme, you have people that elevate the president-elect to like a messianic sort of figure. So we have this wide pendulum swing. In between, you've got variances, lesser of two evils, or et cetera. We need a consistent, biblically driven ethic of public engagement, and we need to be teaching that to our people. How should we look at the world we live in, the communities we're a part of, and our right role in that, and simultaneously know we're part of another kingdom, and learn how to properly represent that one. I mean, it's got to be a both and. So I think that's a real challenge to the church moving forward. Is we've really got to educate ourselves on this. What has excuse me? What has the church traditionally believed about this? And not just Protestant political theory, but specifically in that vein, what have Baptists traditionally? Because that's our interest. How have Baptists traditionally seen their role and responsibility in the culture? And I think that's important. I think it has some real life ramifications, because I think we need to be, I would summarize my political theory in this, we need to be a force for good. So what does that mean? I want to see our people running for office if possible.
Yeah. I remember back to a couple of years back, I guess it may have been 2020 or 2019, when we had some of the big riot situations and those kind of things. I guess it would have been 2020, where I think you did a summer where we talked about these kind of things and had some a few series there. I think it was on Wednesday night, and I remember going through that and just seeing the passages in Romans and the passages in First Peter, that really speak to this, and how the church really should have a pretty good idea of what the Bible tells us to be as citizens, and how, but sometimes how far away from that we get.
Yeah. And part of that, what I was really drilling down in that summer, was biblical worldview. And I posted something about needing consistent political theory taught in churches, and somebody asked, do you mean biblical worldview? Well, that's part of it. Understanding how the Bible informs our view of the issues, and being consistent on that and teaching people that, consistently. There's some things, honestly, as Christians, there's not room for debate here if we're faithful to Scripture.
Right.
Even though we may see that debate common in public debate or public debate among Christians as a whole, like on Twitter and social media. In our local church setting here, we're not going to teach that that abortion is a debatable moral issue. There's no gray area in this. So, teaching these things consistently, mostly for our own folks, but also being a voice here. But it goes beyond that. What does the Bible say? How should you be engaged? You should not be, well, I'm showing my hand here, you shouldn't be disengaged. I mean, we do live in a culture and a community. We do pray for His will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. What are we doing towards that? And of course, obviously, the spiritual enemy is engaged in our politics, and evil people are engaged in politics, and people whose views and values are quite contrary to ours are engaged in politics. I mean, we saw that in this election.
Well, just unbelievers in general. I mean, we think about the mindset. I mean, and we say this in other ways, that we shouldn't expect unbelievers. We shouldn't expect people who don't see God the same way we do to have the same ethic and to have the same outcomes in their life, be looking for ways to make life have purpose and meaning. We should see that it's going to be different when you're talking about people who don't believe in Jesus.
Well, make of this what you will. But these were stats, post-election stats. Those who never go to religious services were plus 26 for Harris. Those who say they have no religion were plus 40 for Harris. Again, you can make what you will. You can interpret those stats as you will. But certainly what we're seeing is people who don't share our views are engaged in the political process. People who don't share our beliefs or our values are vehemently engaged. All you have to do is spend 5 minutes on social media to see that. So Christians have to, we've got to learn what is a right and healthy engagement. Again, without worshiping the political system or seeking our salvation in it. I'll say this one thing, and maybe this is a shot across the bow a little bit to people who are not at all going to be listening to this podcast, but there are a lot of religious-sounding platitudes that come out pre-election and post-election. Just be careful of those kind of things and just buying into that. Obviously, Jesus is our King, and we're completely loyal to Him, and that's the banner that we fly. Obviously, we are in the vein of Abraham, who is looking for the true city, city with foundations, whose builder and architect is God. We get that. Abraham was not living for the temporal, he was living for the eternal. Understand all these things to be true. But be careful that sometimes those high and lofty religious platitudes aren't ways of just excusing disengagement, non-involvement. I mean, we need to be people who are difference makers. And one way that we can all do that is by voting, but not just that, getting involved. But I guess my point in talking about this follow-up and referencing Piper's post at the beginning, let's not think our work is done as Christian conservatives just because we got a temporary stay of God's judgment. That's the way I look at the election. We got a stay of these next 4 years from policies that were decidedly anti-Christian. I had some discussions with people who didn't like Trump. I get it. I get your personal views. I get, personality and behaviors and past. I understand all those things. I want to put side by side two party platforms, and let's look at those not as political issues, but as moral, spiritual issues. How can you defend one over the other? The election did present a binary choice. These are two binary things, and we got to choose the best of those. And I think Christians always have to be doing that. But understanding how we engage the culture practically is important.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Something I saw Nancy Pearcey. Of course, I may remember my listeners, Nancy, being here and being on our podcast. She was so gracious to do that. But also being here for our conference back in the spring. She put on Twitter. She was referencing a professor from England who was telling, was saying to us to be careful with how we view this election results and be careful not to get consumed or see the end game as being to always accept the lesser of two evils. because his point was, in coming from a European background, is if you continue to accept the lesser of two evils without any pushback, you just move further and further towards the left, because the left always seems to be progressive. That's one of their titles, and they move that direction. And so if someone's constantly trying to pick up votes that they're letting off of because they've moved too far left, we find ourselves even more towards them on the left side. So what do you think about that idea about being careful about, accepting the lesser of two evils being the answer?
Yeah, I think the principle's sound. I mean, that totally makes sense. It's very plausible. We have to recognize that in general, both political parties have, in our lifetimes, have moved left, considerably. We talk about that modern Republican Party in many ways is no farther right than the Democratic Party was of 20 years ago. Some of this, I think, is, so I think there's some merit to that and being careful. But here's what I also see. I see this resurgent conservatism that's coming through that's genuine. You're seeing more and more. I mean, it's a minority, and it's always going to be a minority. But people who are genuinely, solidly, thoroughly pro-life, pro-family, pro-traditional values, that core is there. And I think this year, maybe more so since I can remember in the last, 16, 20 years, those voices are being heard. So I think that's a positive. Without those voices pushing and participating, Lord knows where we would be. And so I think we need to continue to stoke that. And so I think one of the issues moving forward is that we saw a lot of young men, for instance, getting involved in the political process. Man, it's a golden age for the church to be discipling young people.
Yeah.
We need to be doing that. And plus what we've seen, like I was giving you some of those stats, college graduates in general were much more likely to vote liberal positions, and whether it's on abortion or presidential election, et cetera, college graduates were. We saw some of those most educated, quote unquote, states were much more likely to be. We've got brokenness in our education system that is just endemic. I mean, we have to be doing a better job of prepping our young people to deal with the challenges. If you've got college age kids, and on many campuses, they have been afraid to speak up with traditional values. I don't know if you saw any. This was circulating in Twitter. Certainly no conservative or friend of conservatives on MSNBC, and they were talking about this after the election, that he was talking about speaking with friends, Democratic friends who had kids in college who were afraid to ever express any conservative viewpoint aloud because it would get them canceled immediately.
Yeah, right.
And they would get destroyed on social media. So any conservative viewpoints were always silenced, either explicitly or implicitly. You knew not to speak. And so what kind of environment have we created? We have silenced conservatism there. Is it any wonder what we're producing? So, it's time. I think, again, it's a stay. We've given this precious 4-year window where the church will not be oppressed by government. Free speech is going to prevail. We have a seat at the table as religious conservatives. Now is the time. Now is the time, and really look at an opportunity to rebuild and resurge. I think.
Yeah, I think what you're saying in there is we have to see that we have responsibility in this. Even for our children's education through school, through college, whatever it is, how far they want to go. We really, as parents, as Christian parents, need to see that we have responsibility to make sure that we just don't let the state do that for us.
Yeah, and I hope what our people are hearing as we say this, when we're talking about this, our responsibility as churches, as parents, as a unified body, to educate our kids is we're not talking about just get them to the point where they ask Jesus into their heart. We're talking about much more than that. What does it mean to live as citizens of the kingdom of God, and what does it mean to live as godly citizens in a broken kingdom? What does it mean to live in Babylon like Daniel did, and to also be a follower of the one true God? What does it mean to live in Nero's Rome like the early Christians did and still be faithful to King Jesus? This is where we are. We live in Babylon as a whole. How do we do that faithfully? What should we do? So we need We need a thoroughgoing Christian worldview. We need to be deeply rooted in biblical ethics. And we need to have a good sense, good understanding of what right engagement is. So some of this comes up like in eschatology even. We're talking about doctrine of end times. If your mindset is it doesn't really matter what we do because we're all going to be out of here soon, then that will affect engagement. That will affect participation. That will affect your political theory. If you think that the worse things get, the better off we are. If you're disappointed because things aren't as bad as they could be after the election now, and it looks like things are brighter, so that means that the rapture is going to be put off for a little while. I mean, that's just bad. That's bad theology. It's bad politics. It's bad citizenship. So we've got to be thinking, okay, what should we be doing? What should our voice be? What should it be collectively as a church? What should it be individually? We really need to be encouraged that. And then, of course, always, this is not new, and this is not because of the election. And just encouraging families, man, it is all about discipling your family, discipling men, taking the leadership, discipling your whole family, discipling your kids, leading your wife well, your home life well. And for single moms and things, this is where your spiritual family comes in. Let us help you. Find good mentors for your kids, good disciplers for your sons, and good examples and disciplers for your daughters. And let's do all we can to prepare ourselves for whatever will come.
Yeah, because like you said, we've only got, it seems like a few years here to make some changes, some differences for the big picture of our country. Very thankful for where we are. But once again, I think we need to see the responsibility in how we do this.
Yeah, and we're thankful. I'm thankful that we live in a place like we live. We live in an area where we live. That's one thing that's becoming clearer and clearer. I mean, man, the cultural, societal divide is wide and deep, and so that's made me thankful where I am. But it also helps me think about how do we engage the rest of the country. There are places. Again, this is going to be too simplistic if you're hearing what I'm saying, that just lost people vote Democrat, saved people vote Christian. I mean, it's not quite so plain and simple, unfortunately, but clearly. But we can also see in these areas that tend most liberal in every other area, socially, morally, etc., politically, those are also the most unchurched places. I mean, if you were to look at one of these political maps post-election, it's not unironic that in some of those areas that we see that are most tilted liberal are most unchurched. Pacific Northwest, California, the Northeast Coast, northeastern states, New England, etc. We've got to be doing all we can to address the culture there. And man, did you see the voting percentages in D.C.?
Oh yeah, 97%. Something.
It was insane. It's like it's a foreign country there that's totally disconnected from the rest of the nation. And so, how do we engage those places with the gospel? Church planters, and church planting is just going to be critical there, I think.
Yeah, and we know that's hard ground. We think of Steve and Tony in New York. They've given their life to be up there for 6-7 years, coming close to a decade, and have really seen some lives change. But it's few and far between that are even give them a chance.
And I haven't even talked to him post-election, but I know pre-election, the kind of questions he would get immediately when introducing himself would be something. The most gentle would be, "What do you think about Trump?"
Yeah.
If it was a little more aggressive, it would be some accusation about Trump and his. So yeah, they've got to cross that barrier there. They've got to cross that political moral divide. What do you believe about whatever current cultural issue? What do you believe about immigration? What do you believe about sex and gender? What do you believe about whatever? And church is going to be able to address those things.
Yeah.
And not maybe this goes without saying, Charles, but not compromise one for the other. I think sometimes we mistakenly feel that our role is solely conversion driven, so we just will not talk about moral issues. And when I say moral issues, I'm talking about things that other people might consider political, but no, I'm talking about moral social issues that the church has to address. What is gender? What is God's design for sex? What is the family? All those kind of things are decidedly moral issues that are in the purview of the church. I'm not talking about how many stoplights we should have in the Ross Clark circle. To me, that's political. I went to Chick-fil-A last night. Man, I won't even comment on that. I don't want to make enemies in my own city, but man, I want to meet the guy who designed all this stuff happening. It's like, holy cow, what a mess. Maybe too many people were eating chicken in Dothan or something.
No, it's just new, Paul. You'll be
I'm,
fine.
I'm
You'll
old.
be
I don't
fine.
like new. I can't get in. I went home last night through the McDonald's.
Did you go through
parking
Enterprise to
lot.
get home, or did you find a way to get there?
I had to put my GPS on to get home from Taco Bell. From Chick-fil-A. Anyway, those are political things, right? Those are neither here nor there. You can have whatever view you want of that. An example, political. Here locally, we had Amendment Number 1.
Yeah.
Strong feelings both sides. People in our own church disagreed on the issue. To me, that's a political issue. Now, maybe there's I won't comment on what I think is a better way on that. Those are politics. These other things are not.
Right.
I applaud President-elect Trump for the message I saw today. Did you see that video where he was talking about what he's going to do on day one?
Yeah, for transgender.
Upend some of Biden's executive orders on transgenderism, root that out as a publicly supported. I don't think, and I think most of you listening would agree, all of you who are Calvary folks, I hope would agree, I don't think we should have women playing against men in women's sports, and I don't think we should have government-funded gender reassignment surgery, and I think we should not allow these gender reassignment or gender-affirming care, which is one of the most nonsensical statements ever made. If it was gender-affirming care, the young boy who comes in and says, "I think I'm a girl," would be told, "No, you're a boy. Go home. Go play with trucks." Something, but no. Anyway, so I applaud that. That was a strong moral issue. That's not political. And so we got to keep addressing these moral issues and make our voice heard.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that before we stop today, because
this is a full-on rant today.
Well, some churches took it a lot further than we did. Some churches took it to, and we've seen pastors, some Baptist pastors, who have really tied themselves to Trump. But there seems to be, from what I know of you and from how we have done this discussion, I think there's some limitations that we have as pastors, and some places where we probably should stay in that moral. Is that what you would say? Stay in that moral zone, so to speak?
Well, here's what I've told some other folks sometimes. There's a decided difference from what you're going to hear from me given a sermon versus what you might get from in a personal conversation when it comes to some of these issues. And here's what I mean. I don't mean I would tell you something different or I'm going to flip-flop publicly or privately. I'm saying if I'm preaching a sermon, my foundational purpose there is, what does the Word say? How does it direct us? How do we live? How do we apply this? And I want to be as absolutely certain as I can possibly be on this issue. I've got opinions on all kinds of issues. I'm not just going to spout my opinions, on every issue via the platform that the church has granted me. That would be an illicit use of the platform and the ministry. But where it comes to moral, social, ethical issues, where Scripture speaks, where the church must address, where the church historically has stood, then absolutely I'm going to speak to those things. Now, if you want my opinion on why I like this guy better in this position than this person, or others, I'll speak to that. Like for instance, in Florida, there was Amendment Number 3 about marijuana. Well, as a citizen, and I think anybody here who vacations on the coast would agree, I don't think you want everywhere you go publicly to reek of marijuana.
Right.
That's just a personal opinion thing. That's not moral. That's not ethical. That's just practical. I don't want spring break to be filled with people who want to go to Florida because they have liberal marijuana laws. I don't want to walk through Pier Park or Destin Commons and it just be reeking of marijuana. It's all legal now. But there are moral issues too. I also believe in the dangers of introducing that level of legality to a gateway drug and all that can entail. So yeah, I would speak against that. I think that's a moral thing. We should not support that. Those kind of issues. So I don't know if that answers that, but yeah, I'm not going to use the pulpit to spout out every issue. Now, when it came to this election, I think people, and as I challenged people on that Sunday, I do think, and this is part of that sort of political theory, they do need to reconsider sitting it out. And I think most of our people did vote. I would concede as a matter of conscience simply because Scripture does. If something violates your conscience, to do that would be a sin. So for those Christians who were saying, my conscience would not allow me to vote for Trump, I can concede that. Where I would have a very hard time justifying, and I would go against pretty strongly, would be that group like we saw evangelicals for Harris based on these things. I don't see how I cannot see any room in a biblical worldview or a Christian mindset to support those policies. So to sit it out because of conscience, I could concede that, although I would encourage you rethink that, because I think this choice is clearer than that. But also because of, again, which I'll talk about more in future time or when we develop some sort of open class on it, because I think our view of politics and culture, our political theory, really demands more engagement. I don't think we should be sitting them out. I mean, that day may come. That day may come where we've got 2 Nebuchadnezzars running, or 2 Jezebels. Right now, that's not the case. So I think we need to engage.
All right. Well, it's been a fun week, as I said. Just if you liked politics, I think most people stayed up way too late on Tuesday night. From what I've talked to people in different ways. And,
I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear it end.
Yeah,
I wanted to hear concession speeches and acceptance speeches.
Yeah, it was good to have I guess an outcome that we could all find out before the morning. That was nice.
Right.
So, but anyway, this has been another episode of Calvary Life, and remember, we are for God, for Dothan, for the world.